Nathan stood frozen in his doorway, grocery bags slipping from his hands. A pregnant woman sat on his worn couch, her belly round and full, tears streaming down her face. She looked up at him with eyes he'd never seen before and whispered words that shattered his world. "This baby is yours." But Nathan hadn't been with anyone in 3 years. How could this possibly be true? Before we continue, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The morning light filtered through the cracked blinds of the small apartment, painting stripes across the linoleum floor. Nathan moved quietly through the narrow kitchen, his shoulders hunched from years of carrying weight that had nothing to do with muscles. At 42, he looked older, the kind of tiredness that lives in your bones, not just your eyes. He poured cereal into 2 mismatched bowls, one for him, one for Tommy. His son shuffled into the kitchen, 8 years old with hair that stuck up in the back, no matter how much Nathan tried to smooth it down. The boy climbed onto the wobbly chair without a word. They ate in the comfortable silence of people who understood each other's rhythms. "Dad," Tommy said, milk dribbling down his chin. "Can I get new shoes? The ones at school keep calling mine old." Nathan swallowed hard. The shoes could last another month, maybe 2 if they were careful. "Soon, buddy. I promise." It was the kind of promise that tasted like ash, the kind he'd been making since Bianca left, since the medical bills from Tommy's birth had buried them, since the factory closed and good jobs became myths people told in bars. But Nathan kept his promises. Always. Even when it meant skipping lunch, even when it meant his own shoes had cardboard tucked inside to cover the holes. After dropping Tommy at school, Nathan headed to his first job. Dishwasher at Bernie's Diner, 6 to noon. Then construction cleanup, noon to 6. Then security guard at the mall, 7 to midnight. 3 jobs that barely stitched together enough to keep the lights on. His hands were red and cracked from hot water and harsh soap. His back ached from lifting debris. His eyes burned from staying awake when his body begged for rest. But he never complained. Complaining was a luxury for people who had choices. The day it happened, Nathan had finished his second shift early. A pipe had burst at the construction site, sending everyone home. He'd stopped at the discount grocery store, buying dented cans and day-old bread. The kind of shopping that required mental math at every shelf. He climbed the 3 flights of stairs to his apartment, keys jangling in his hand, already thinking about the 45 minutes he could spend with Tommy before his night shift started. Maybe they could play cards. Maybe Tommy would laugh. Nathan pushed open the door. It wasn't locked. That was the first wrong thing. He always locked it. Always. The grocery bags hit the floor. Eggs cracked. Milk pooled. A woman sat on his couch. Young, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair pulled back and a face he'd never seen before. But it was her belly that stopped his heart. Round and swollen, the kind of pregnant that meant months had already passed. She looked up at him. Her eyes were red, her cheeks wet with tears. "Nathan Ward?" Her voice cracked on his name. He couldn't move. Couldn't speak. His mind raced through possibilities. Wrong apartment? A mistake? Some kind of scam? "I'm Vanessa," she said, standing slowly, one hand supporting her lower back. "I know this is strange. I know you don't know me. But I need you to listen." Nathan found his voice, though it came out rough. "How did you get in here?" "Your landlord. I told him it was an emergency." She took a step forward. "Please. Just listen." "I'm calling the police." He reached for his phone. "This baby is yours." Nathan stared at her, his phone halfway to his ear. "That's impossible. 3 years ago, the clinic on 5th Street. You were a donor." The world tilted. Nathan grabbed the doorframe to steady himself. The clinic. He'd donated sperm once, just once, when things were so bad he couldn't make rent. They'd paid him $200. It was anonymous, they said. No one would ever know, they said. That was supposed to be anonymous, he whispered. Vanessa's hand moved to her belly, protective, gentle. It was. But I needed to find you. I had to. Why? The word came out hard, sharp. Why are you here? She sank back onto the couch, and for the first time, Nathan noticed how thin she looked despite the pregnancy, how her clothes hung loose everywhere except her middle, how her hands trembled. Because, she said, I'm dying. Nathan didn't sit. He stood in the doorway of his own home, a stranger in the space he'd fought so hard to keep. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. Dying, he repeated, testing the word. It felt wrong in his mouth. Vanessa nodded, her hand never leaving her belly. Stage 4 cancer. Pancreatic. They found it 2 months after I got pregnant. The doctors wanted me to terminate, said the pregnancy would accelerate the disease. But I couldn't. I just couldn't. She looked up at him, and Nathan saw something in her eyes that he recognized. The same desperate determination he wore every day, the kind that keeps you standing when logic says to fall. I don't have family, she continued. No parents, no siblings. The father I'd planned to use the donation with left when I got sick. Said he couldn't handle it. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. So here I am, pregnant and dying, and this baby needs someone. Nathan felt his chest tighten. I can't. I have a son. I work 3 jobs just to feed us. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with walls so thin you can hear the neighbors breathe. I'm barely keeping my head above water. I know. Her voice was soft. I know everything about you, Nathan. I spent weeks looking into your life. I know about Tommy, about Bianca leaving, about the medical debt. I know you work yourself to the bone. I know your credit score and your favorite meal, and that you haven't taken a day off in 14 months. The violation of it hit him like a fist. You investigated me? I needed to know who my child's father was, who he might become. She pulled a folder from beside the couch. You're a good man, Nathan. Better than good. You sacrifice everything for your son. You keep your promises. You don't give up even when life keeps taking from you. Nathan wanted to argue, to tell her that being broke and exhausted didn't make him a hero. But she kept talking. I'm not asking you to take the baby right now, Vanessa said. I have time. Maybe 2 months, maybe 4. The doctors aren't sure. But when I'm gone, this child will need someone. The state will take custody otherwise. Foster care. The system. She stood again, slower this time, and Nathan noticed how much effort it took, how pain flickered across her face before she hid it. I chose you 3 years ago from a database because your profile said you played guitar, that you wanted to help families who couldn't conceive, that you believed everyone deserved a chance at happiness. Her voice broke. I chose you again now because I've watched you. I've seen the kind of father you are, and I'm begging you. Please, when I'm gone, don't let my baby disappear into the system. Nathan closed his eyes. Behind his lids, he saw Tommy's face. Saw the shoes that needed replacing, the bills stacked on the counter, the empty refrigerator at the end of every month. He saw the life he was already failing to provide. I can't afford another child, he said. I can barely afford the one I have. I know. Vanessa reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. That's why I'm leaving everything to you. My life insurance policy. It's not much, but it's something. $50,000 when I pass. The number hit him like cold water. 50,000. That was Tommy's new shoes. That was rent paid for a year. That was breathing room he hadn't felt in so long he'd forgotten what it was like. But it was also blood money, payment for letting someone die. I don't want your money, he said. It's not for you. She placed the envelope on the coffee table. It's for them. For both of your children. So you can keep your promises. The apartment door opened behind Nathan. Tommy walked in, his teacher beside him, apologetic smile in place. "Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Ward. Tommy wasn't feeling well, so I thought I'd bring him home early. The school tried calling, but—" Her voice died as she saw Vanessa, saw the pregnant belly, saw Nathan's pale face. Tommy looked between them, confusion creasing his small forehead. "Dad? Who's that?" And Nathan realized that whatever answer he gave in this moment would change everything. But he had no idea what the truth even was anymore. Tommy's teacher left quickly, too quickly, the kind of exit that said she'd be gossiping in the teacher's lounge by morning. Nathan barely noticed. He was watching his son watch Vanessa, the boy's eyes wide and calculating in the way only children could be. "Tommy," Nathan said, his voice steadier than he felt. "This is Vanessa. She's a friend who needed to talk to me about something important." Vanessa smiled, though Nathan could see the effort it took. "Hi, Tommy. Your dad's told me a lot about you." Tommy's eyes narrowed. "No, he hasn't. Dad doesn't talk about me to strangers." Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. Nathan guided Tommy toward his bedroom. "Go start your homework, buddy. I need a few more minutes." "Is she going to have a baby?" Tommy asked, not moving. "Yes." "Is it yours?" The question was so direct, so childishly honest, that Nathan felt something crack inside his chest. He knelt down to Tommy's level. "It's complicated, but I promise I'll explain everything later. Right now, I need you to trust me." Tommy studied his father's face with the intensity of someone who'd learned early that promises were fragile things. Then he nodded and disappeared into his room, the door clicking shut behind him. When Nathan turned back, Vanessa was crying again. Silent tears that tracked down her cheeks and dripped onto her swollen belly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have come. I didn't think about how this would affect him." Nathan sat finally, his legs giving out. He sank into the old armchair across from the couch, springs groaning beneath him. "Tell me everything, from the beginning. And don't lie, because I'm going to check every word." So she told him. About the cancer diagnosis at 23, aggressive and fast-moving. About freezing her eggs before chemotherapy. Hoping for a future that seemed impossibly far away. About meeting Daniel, falling in love, deciding to have a baby through IVF. About choosing Nathan's donation because something in his profile spoke to her. "What did it say?" Nathan interrupted. "My profile. What made you pick me?" Vanessa's hand trembled as she pulled out her phone, scrolling through saved screenshots. "Here." Nathan read his own words from 3 years ago, words he'd written in a clinic's sterile office while trying not to think about how desperate he'd become. "I'm donating because I believe every child deserves to be wanted. I grew up without a father, and I know what that absence feels like. If I can help create a family for someone, help them feel the love I found when my son was born, then maybe some good can come from my situation. Music and family are the only things that matter. Everything else is just noise." He didn't remember writing that, didn't remember being that hopeful. "You played guitar," Vanessa said softly, "just like my father did before he died. It felt like a sign." Nathan wanted to laugh at the idea of signs, of fate, of anything that suggested the universe gave a damn about any of them. But he just sat there, staring at words from a version of himself that seemed like a stranger. "Then Daniel left," he prompted. She nodded. 3 months into the pregnancy. He said he couldn't watch me die, couldn't raise a child alone while grieving. He just left. "And you tracked me down, how?" "The clinic had a breach. Medical records got leaked online 6 months ago. It was in the news for a day, then forgotten. But I was searching. I found the connection between my treatment number and your donation number, then your name, then your address. Illegal. All of it completely illegal." But Nathan understood desperation. Understood doing things that made you sick inside because the alternative was worse. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Really? Because taking a baby isn't like adopting a puppy. It's 18 years minimum. It's diapers and doctors and college and every single day of worry and sacrifice. I'm already drowning, Vanessa. You're asking me to take on an anchor. She flinched at the words, but didn't argue. I want you to meet her. The baby. I want you to feel her kick and hear her heartbeat and know that she's real. That she's not a burden or an obligation. She's a person who deserves a chance. Her? A girl. I'm having a girl. Vanessa's hand moved in slow circles over her belly. I named her Hope. Stupid, right? Naming her something so obvious. But when you're dying, you stop caring about being clever. Hope. Of course. What else would a dying woman name her last chance at leaving something behind? Nathan stood, his body aching from the day's labor and the weight of this impossible choice. I need time. I need to think. I don't have much time, Vanessa said. Then you should have come sooner. The words came out harsher than he meant, but he didn't take them back. He walked to the door, opened it, waited. Vanessa rose slowly, gathering her purse and her folder and her desperate hopes. At the threshold, she paused. I'm staying at the Sunset Motel on Riverside, room 12. If you want to talk or meet her properly, I'll be there. She left, and Nathan closed the door, locked it, then slid down to sit on the floor, his head in his hands. Tommy appeared in the hallway. Is she crazy? I don't know, buddy. Are you going to help her? Nathan looked at his son, this boy he'd built his entire life around. What do you think I should do? Tommy considered this, chewing his bottom lip the way he did when math problems got hard. You always say we should help people if we can. But you also say we have to take care of ourselves first, like on airplanes. Oxygen masks, Nathan murmured. Put yours on before helping others. Yeah. Tommy sat beside his father on the floor. Do we have our mask on, Dad? Nathan pulled his son close, breathed in the smell of his shampoo and his boyhood. I'm not sure anymore. That night, after Tommy was asleep and Nathan had called in sick to his security job for the first time in 14 months, he sat at the kitchen table with Vanessa's envelope. He didn't open it, just stared at it like it might explode. $50,000. A baby girl named Hope, a dying woman with no one else to turn to, and him. Just him. A broke single father who was already failing at the life he had. But something Vanessa said kept echoing in his mind. You keep your promises. Did he? Really? Or was he just surviving day to day, making promises he hoped to keep, but never quite managed? Nathan thought about his own father, the one who left before he was born, the absence that shaped him more than any presence ever could. Was he really going to do that to another child? Let her disappear into a system that would chew her up and spit her out? But what kind of life could he give her? What kind of father would he be, stretched so thin he was already transparent? He opened his laptop, the old one with the cracked screen and sticky keys. Searched for Vanessa's story. Found the clinic breach she'd mentioned. Found her medical records, her cancer diagnosis, her timeline of decline. It was all true. Every word. Then he searched for himself, for his donation, for the paper trail that led from a desperate afternoon 3 years ago to this impossible moment. And that's when he found it. The small detail buried in legal documents, the clause that changed everything. But Nathan didn't understand its full meaning yet. Didn't realize how deeply he'd been pulled into something that went far beyond a dying woman's wish. He just sat there, staring at words he didn't quite comprehend. While the clock ticked toward midnight and his life hung in the balance between who he was and who he might become, Nathan stood outside room 12 of the Sunset Motel, his hand raised to knock but frozen in the air. The motel was the kind that rented by the hour and didn't ask questions. Peeling paint, flickering neon, the smell of cigarettes and regret seeping through every crack. He'd left Tommy with Mrs. May next door, promising he'd only be gone an hour. 2 at most. The boy had looked at him with ancient eyes and said, "It's about the baby, isn't it?" Nathan had just nodded. Truth was easier than lies, even when it hurt. He knocked. 3 sharp raps that echoed in the humid evening air. Vanessa opened the door, and Nathan saw immediately that she was worse. Just 2 days since she'd appeared in his apartment. But the decline was visible. Her skin had taken on a grayish tint. Her eyes were sunken. She moved like every step required negotiation with pain. "You came," she said, relief flooding her voice. "I came, but I have questions." She let him in. The room was small but clean. A single bed, neatly made. A desk with scattered papers. A window that looked out onto the parking lot where broken dreams went to rust. Vanessa sat on the bed, breathless from the short walk to the door. "Ask me anything." Nathan stayed standing. "I looked into the clinic breach, found the documents, found the legal clauses attached to donations." "Okay. According to state law, anonymous donors have 0 parental rights or responsibilities. Even if you tracked me down, even if you named me as the father. Legally, I have no obligation to this child." Vanessa's face remained calm. Too calm. "I know. So why come to me? Why not go through the state, through adoption agencies, through any of the actual legal channels for finding a parent?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, walked to the desk, and picked up a folder. Not the one she'd shown him before, a different one. Thicker. "Because," she said, "the legal channels would have found out the truth." Nathan felt his stomach drop. What truth? Vanessa handed him the folder. "I lied to you, Nathan. Not about everything. The cancer is real. The pregnancy is real. The baby being yours is real. But I didn't find you through a data breach." He opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Him leaving his apartment, him at work, him with Tommy at the park. Dozens of photos spanning months, investigation reports, financial records, and at the bottom, a single sheet of paper. A legal document. "What is this?" His hands shook. "A contract," Vanessa said. "Between me and a private adoption agency. They specialize in finding biological fathers for children when traditional adoption falls through. They track down donors, build cases for parental obligation, create situations where the father feels morally compelled to take responsibility." Nathan read the document. Read his name. Read the payout structure. Read the conditions of success. "You hired people to manipulate me," he whispered. "No." Vanessa's voice cracked. "I hired people to find you, to understand if you'd be a good father. The manipulation was my choice, my decision to show up at your apartment, to make it personal, to make it impossible for you to say no." He looked up at her, this dying woman who'd invaded his life. "Why? If you could have just gone through legal channels, if you could have found actual adoptive parents with money and stable homes, why come to me?" Tears streamed down her face now. Real ones, Nathan thought, not performed. "Because I watched you for 2 months. I saw you give your last $10 to a homeless man outside Bernie's diner. I saw you carry Mrs. May's groceries up 3 flights of stairs, even though your back was screaming. I saw you stay up all night helping Tommy with a science project, even though you had to work at 6 in the morning. I saw you be the father I wanted for my daughter. You had no right. I know. I know I didn't. But I'm dying, Nathan. And when you're dying, you stop caring about rights and rules and proper channels. You just care about the one thing you're leaving behind." Nathan sank into the desk chair, the folder heavy in his hands. "You should have been honest from the start. Would you have listened if a stranger called you up and said, 'Hey, Remember that sperm you donated? I used it, got pregnant, and now I'm dying and want you to take the baby? Would you have even taken the meeting?" He wanted to say yes, wanted to believe he was the kind of man who'd listen to desperate pleas from strangers. But he knew the truth. He would have hung up, blocked the number, protected his small life from invasion. "So what now?" he asked. "What's the end game here? I take the baby, you die feeling good about yourself, and I drown trying to keep 3 people afloat?" Vanessa walked to him slowly. She knelt, awkward and painful with her belly, until she was at eye level. The endgame is that Hope has a father who knows what it means to sacrifice, who understands that love isn't about having enough money or enough space or enough time. It's about showing up anyway. She took his hand, placed it on her belly. "Feel that?" Nathan froze. Under his palm, something moved. A flutter. A kick. A tiny life pressing against the barrier between them. "That's your daughter," Vanessa whispered. "She's real. She's coming whether we're ready or not. And she deserves better than foster care, and a system that will forget her name before she's old enough to remember her own." The baby kicked again, stronger this time. Nathan felt tears sting his eyes. He thought about Tommy, about the first time he'd felt him move inside Bianca's belly. The terror and wonder and overwhelming responsibility of it all. "I can't do this," he said. "I can't be what you need me to be." Vanessa squeezed his hand. "You already are. You just don't see it yet." Nathan pulled his hand away, stood, backed toward the door. "I need air. I need to think." "Wait." Vanessa struggled to stand. "There's something else. Something I need to tell you before you leave. I don't think I can handle anything else. You have to." She gripped the desk edge, her knuckles white. "The adoption agency, the people I hired to find you, they're not what I thought they were." Ice flooded Nathan's veins. "What does that mean?" "I found out 3 days ago. They're not licensed. They're running a scam. They find biological fathers, manipulate them into taking children, then blackmail them later. Threaten to expose them as deadbeats, as men who abandoned their biological children. They extract money, favors, whatever they can get." Nathan felt the room tilt. "And you're telling me this now?" "I fired them. Told them I wouldn't go through with it. That's why I came to you directly. Why I was crying when you found me in your apartment. I was terrified of what I'd almost done to you." "Almost?" Nathan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You did it, Vanessa. You walked into my home, told me I was a father, dropped a bomb on my life. The damage is done. I know I can't take it back, but I'm trying to protect you now. The agency knows about you. They know about Tommy. They know about your financial situation and how desperate you are. And if you take Hope, if you go through with this, they will come for you." Nathan grabbed the door handle. "Then I won't take her. Problem solved. She goes to foster care. They'll track her there too. Find a way to use her against you anyway. These people don't stop, Nathan. I've seen their files. They've done this to 17 other men in the past 5 years, ruined lives, destroyed families, and I led them straight to you." She was sobbing now, full body sobs that shook her frame and made her gasp for air. "I'm so sorry. I thought I was saving my daughter. I thought I was being smart, but I just made everything worse." Nathan stood with his hand on the door, caught between leaving and staying, between running from this nightmare and walking deeper into it. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Really? No more lies, no more manipulation. What do you actually want?" Vanessa wiped her face with shaking hands. "I want you to take Hope, raise her, love her. But I want you to do it knowing the full truth, knowing that there are people who will try to use her against you. I want you to go in with your eyes open, not because I tricked you, but because you chose it. Why would I choose that? Why would anyone choose to be blackmailed and extorted? She met his eyes, and in that moment, Nathan saw not a dying woman or a manipulator or a desperate mother. He just saw another human being trying to do right in a world that made it nearly impossible. Because, she said, love is always a risk, and some risks are worth taking. Nathan drove home in silence. The city lights blurred past his windows, each one a life he'd never know, a story he'd never hear. He thought about all the ways this could go wrong, all the ways he'd fail, disappoint, collapse under the weight of it. But he also thought about the kick, that small flutter against his palm, evidence of life insisting on itself despite every reason not to exist. Mrs. May met him at the door, Tommy already asleep on her couch. "Everything okay?" she asked in her soft accent. "I don't know," Nathan admitted, "but I will be." He carried Tommy home, tucked him into bed, stood watching his son sleep. This boy who trusted him completely, who believed his father could fix anything, solve any problem, keep any promise. What kind of example would Nathan set if he walked away now? What would he be teaching Tommy about responsibility, about showing up, about being someone who could be counted on? But what kind of example would he set by taking on more than he could handle, by drowning them all in good intentions? Nathan pulled out his phone, called Vanessa. She answered on the first ring. "I'll do it," he said. "But on my terms. Anything. First, you give me everything. Every document, every contact, every piece of information about this agency. We're going to the police. We're shutting them down." "Okay." "Second, you set up that life insurance policy properly. Legal documents, lawyer involved, everything airtight. That money goes into a trust for both Tommy and Hope. Not for me. For them. Done. Third, you let me meet your doctor, confirm your timeline, understand what the next few months look like, because if I'm doing this, I'm doing it right. You're not dying alone in a motel room. You're getting proper care, proper support. Whatever time you have left, Hope deserves to know you spent it well." Vanessa's voice broke. "Thank you. I'm not done. Fourth, you write her a letter. Everything you want her to know about you, about why you made the choices you made, about who her mother was. She gets to know where she came from, even if she never knew you. I will. I promise. And fifth," Nathan paused, his throat tight, "you apologize to Tommy. He's 8 years old, and he just watched a stranger walk into his home and shake his entire world. He deserves to understand why. Age-appropriate, gentle, but honest. Can you do that?" "Yes. All of it. Whatever you need." Nathan sat on the floor of Tommy's room, his back against the wall, watching his son's chest rise and fall. "I'm going to be a father to your daughter, not because you manipulated me. Not because of money or guilt or any of the things you tried to use, but because she deserves a chance, and I'm the only one who can give it to her. You're a good man, Nathan." "No," he said quietly. "I'm just a man trying not to be like my father, trying to show up when it matters, trying to keep promises even when they hurt." They talked through the night, made plans, called lawyers, filed police reports. Vanessa gave him everything, held nothing back. By morning, the agency had been raided. By noon, 3 people were in custody. The news ran the story for a day, then forgot. The world moved on. But Nathan's world had changed forever. 4 months later, Nathan stood in a hospital room holding a tiny girl with dark hair and his eyes. Hope was 6 pounds, 3 ounces of determined life. She'd come 2 weeks early. As if she knew time was short. Vanessa had held her daughter for 17 minutes, touched her face, counted her fingers, whispered words that Nathan would never know. Then she'd handed Hope to him and said, "Take care of my heart." She died 3 days later, in a hospice room with sunlight streaming through the windows, and Nathan holding one hand while a nurse held the other. Her last words were, "Thank you for giving her a chance." Now Nathan sat in his apartment, bigger now, 2 bedrooms become 3 through creative use of the insurance money. Tommy was at school, doing well, adjusting to being a brother with the resilience only children seem to possess. Hope slept in Nathan's arms, her small fist wrapped around his finger. He'd quit one of his jobs, kept 2. Found daycare that was affordable and safe. Made it work because there was no other choice. It was hard. Some days impossible. Some nights he sat up crying from exhaustion and fear and the overwhelming weight of it all. But some mornings, Tommy would tiptoe in and place his small hand on Hope's head and whisper, "Good morning, sister." And Nathan would remember why he'd chosen this, why he'd taken the risk. Because love wasn't about having enough. It was about giving everything you had and trusting it would be enough. Mrs. May knocked on the door, bringing soup like she did every Tuesday. "How's the baby?" "Perfect," Nathan said. "Stubborn and loud and perfect." "Like her father," he laughed. Maybe. Maybe stubbornness was what kept you going when the world said to quit. Maybe being loud was just another way of insisting you mattered. That night, after both children were asleep, Nathan sat at his kitchen table with Vanessa's letter, the one she'd written for Hope. He wasn't supposed to read it, but he did anyway. Just the first line. "My darling Hope, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. But your father, your real father, will still be there. And that's all that matters." Nathan folded the letter carefully, placed it back in the envelope. Someday, when Hope was old enough to understand, he'd give it to her. Tell her the story of how she came to be his, how a dying woman had trusted a broke single father with her most precious gift. But for now, he just sat in the quiet apartment, listening to his children breathe. 2 heartbeats that depended on him. 2 lives that he'd promised to protect. It wasn't the life he'd planned, wasn't the life he'd wanted, but it was the life he had. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Outside, the city hummed with a million other stories. But inside, in this small apartment with its cracked walls and second-hand furniture, Nathan Ward kept his promises, showed up when it mattered, and learned that sometimes the heaviest weights you carry are also the ones that keep you grounded. Hope stirred in her crib, making soft baby sounds. Tommy called out from his room, having a dream. Nathan stood, his body aching but his heart full. He checked on Tommy first, smoothed his wild hair, whispered that everything was okay. Then he picked up Hope, held her close, and began to hum. An old song his mother used to sing. Something about storms passing and sunlight breaking through. Because that's what fathers did. They sang in the dark. They held on when letting go would be easier. They chose love even when it looked like drowning. And somehow, impossibly, they learned to swim. If this story touched something in you, hit that like button and share it with someone you want to hear with. Subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss another story.